All problems, no matter how complex, can be solved very simply. Just become our. Dickey First State. The administration of the American president imposes draconian tariffs in response to a mutiny on a neighboring ship. This mocking good morning was wished by Donald Trump to the whole of Canada, even before he took office as President of the United States. The northern country just laughed at the time. But then the inauguration passed, and blessings from the big neighbor poured out like a cornucopia. Canada responded in kind, and this bold defiance only angered the states even more. Today, we will talk about the most explosive conflict of recent days, and about one type of war that can change the course of both local and world history without a single shot being fired. You will learn about a new interpretation of the David and Goliath confrontation in this video. Enjoy watching. Penny to penny, dollar to dollar. Once upon a time, Canada began its journey as a complex of British and French colonies. It only became its own at the end of a long political process in 1982. The country's motto is from sea to sea, and it fully corresponds to reality. The largest trading ports in Vancouver and Montreal ensure a consistently high level of trade. A safe climate and numerous mineral deposits inspire great hopes for even further development. In the future, a significant portion of the country's economy is contributed by industry and manufacturing. Canada's engineering sector is a highly developed industry, which, along with the food industry, accounts for about 40% of the total value of the country's industrial production. The metallurgy of the Maple Leaf Country boasts advanced metal processing technologies. Steel plants in the cities of Hamilton, Nanticoke, and Sault Ste. Marie are capable of producing from 4.5 to nearly 10 billion pounds of steel per year. We should not forget about the automotive sector either. After the signing of the Canada-US Automotive Agreement in 1965, Canada became a major producer of parts for American car factories. These include the well-known General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler. According to the latest estimate, the country's GDP for 2023 is an impressive $2.142 trillion. The accumulation of such a solid capital was aided by the country closest to Canada, which became its main trading partner, ally, and, as it turned out later, a big and very painful thorn. Big neighbor, big hopes. According to the rules of life, there will always be someone whose grass is greener, whose club is scarier, and whose bank account is bigger. The United States of America. The closest neighbor and main partner of Canada in practically all areas, from security agencies to environmental protection. They account for as much as 3/4 of Canadian exports. Parts, energy resources, machinery, and high-quality Canadian timber. The GDP of the USA, however, is somewhat larger than that of its northern partner, at $26.94 trillion. This seems quite strange, given the small, and in some places frankly underdeveloped industries in the country, since America is more focused on the service sector, which makes up almost 80% of the country's GDP. This contradiction does not align with Trump's plans to make America great again. It would seem that there are obvious solutions to all pressing economic problems. For example, the same infusion of funds into improving the extraction and processing of minerals, putting the energy sector on more efficient tracks, and favorable economic agreements with other countries. But we do remember the greener grass of the neighbor. According to the current U.S. administration, it would be much better not to form an alliance, but to incorporate the desirable region into its own territory. This will not only correct the situation, but also save a life. Congratulations, you're on top. Or rather, we are. Great America, through an economy with new advanced industries and a territory with numerous long-lasting resource sources. And from there, it's not far to 100% global dominance. It's just that Canada is not planning to voluntarily give up its resources. So, how to break the resistance? Force the Canadians themselves to ask for annexation? An open conflict is not an option. There aren't enough resources or people, and it's very important to remain the good guy in the eyes of the rest of the world community. Well then, it means war, a different kind of war. Where is the weapon? It's the politicians' speeches about bullets, trade sanctions, and tariffs. You give me everything. I keep everything for myself. Not long ago, in 2023, Canada set a course for a more diversified and independent economy. The important role of merely providing transit between the continental U.S. and Alaska was not enough. the desire to expand markets to other countries and take on a more prominent role in the global economy was met with great enthusiasm by Canadians. Even the United Kingdom, whose monarch officially reigns over Canada, supported this decision. And no, it's not about the centuries-old rivalry between the British and Americans. Well, maybe just a little. Donald Trump, being more of a businessman than a politician, imposed a 25% tariff on all goods from Canada. This is also covered by rhetoric about combating illegal production and transportation of prohibited substances and migration issues. A small exception was made only for energy resources. 10% is enough. The U.S. administration understood perfectly well that if they matched the size of his tariff with the others, the motive behind all these decisions would become too obvious. Surprisingly, Canada almost immediately recovered from the shock and implemented retaliatory measures. The same 25% on the import of American goods. These include steel, aluminum, computer equipment, and sporting goods. As a bonus, 25% on the much-needed electricity. Ontario Premier Doug Ford stated that this measure would affect more than 1.5 million households and businesses in the United States. And as long as the threat of tariffs does not disappear forever, Canada will not back down. We recall the U.S. automotive sector's dependence on parts production, on the high level of energy production and its export to the same America which so desperately needs it. And it becomes clear that two can play this game. Run to the smart ones or the beautiful ones. At the moment, the back and forth of tariffs continues from one side to the other. On March 12th, Donald Trump announced an increase in tariffs to 50% in response to Canada's offensive threats. But our attention should be directed to one particular state. It is the one, being directly on the border with another country, that serves as both a beacon of hope and one of the first. It's punched in the teeth in this fight. With 1867, when Alaska became part of the United States through a deal between the Russian Empire and the USA, its economic history has developed at a rapid and sometimes fantastic pace. Just 23 years later, the first of many oil fields was discovered in Pratha Bay. In 1896, the gold rush began in the Canadian Yukon. The veins were quickly exhausted, and Alaska, as the nearest region with similar conditions, took up the baton. These and other events spurred the development of transportation and oil infrastructure. The concentration of such important resources was an incredible stroke of luck, almost at a single point on the continent. The major transportation hub in the city of Skagway, similar to its neighbor, has huge deposits of important mineral resources and the Trans-Alaska Pipeline, which are of great importance, not only for the state itself but for the country as a whole. Alaska's economy is at an important stage of development. Successfully addressing the challenges facing the state will require a comprehensive approach that considers the interests of all stakeholders and is aimed at the sustainable development of the region in the long term. Its potential as an economic region remains significant. The successful realization of opportunities largely depends on the ability of authorities and businesses to adapt to changing conditions and find innovative solutions to existing problems. Canada-Alaska cooperation as a whole is of significant importance. The development of the region's transportation infrastructure and the maintenance of economic activity. Ensuring border security. For America, Alaska is the most convenient point for interaction with NATO structures, supply, and operation of military bases. Strategic importance in the event of a real conflict. And the administration of the American president understands that even a small state compared to them can disrupt all these plans. It would seem that such similar and highly developed regions can peacefully coexist. What could be the reasons for quarrels? Someday we will be able to find the answer to this question together. A plague on both your houses. At the moment, we can only speculate on the development of events. And the potential negative consequences for each participant in this confrontation are quite serious concerns. In Canada, there is a threat of an 8.5% drop in exports just in the first year of tariff implementation. Business investment will decrease by 12%, and consumer spending will decline by more than 2% by 2027. The macroeconomic consequences look even more dire. A 3% GDP drop, an increase in unemployment, and rising inflation due to retaliatory tariffs. The Bank of Canada will face a dilemma when it has to choose between the need to lower interest rates to support the economy or raise them to curb inflation. The United States will not be able to escape unscathed either. An increasing annual chance of falling into a recession. An increase in additional household expenses by more than $1,200 per year. Another supply chain disruption, which once nearly put U.S. manufacturing into a coma. A decrease in employment levels amid issues with migrants could lead to a serious labor market crisis. And American businesses, according to some financial analysts, might be preparing their gun with a single bullet, as harsh as that may sound. A small pebble in the shoe, like a threat to a big journey. In the heat of disputes and accusations, it was undeservedly forgotten. The most important player in this whole story, the global market, like a complex mechanism made up of many parts, is very sensitive to such local financial conflicts. According to the International Monetary Fund's estimates, the current confrontation will have a very negative impact on the economies of the participants due to their strong integration with each other. The decrease in the value of Canada's exports as a result of American tariffs on their imported goods could range from $50 to $80 billion. This means a reduction in the GDP of the countries by 3 or even 5% annually, and the consequences for the Canadian economy will last for 2 to 3 years. This trade war has seriously disrupted trade between Canada and the USA with destabilized supply chains. The expected rise in prices for Canadian goods and services will exacerbate inflation and bring recession even closer, hanging like the sword of Damocles over America's finances. And even the loud voice of the American Chamber of Commerce stating that the imposed tariffs are severely harming both economies was not heard. And how will the world react to this? An overall slowdown in trade flows will serve as the appetizer, with increased uncertainty for international companies as the starter. Add to that the high stress due to the urgency of revising, essentially attempting to reinvent supply chains. Commodity markets will slowly but surely descend into madness. Price volatility for such goods will be extremely unstable. The negative impact on suppliers may intensify the overall tension between countries. In turn, they might use this as a pretext for actual military confrontation to protect their interests. The investment climate will no longer just be gloomy. It can be said with confidence that the status of a storm will become much closer. The decline in the attractiveness of the North American region for investors will come to the forefront, followed by a reorientation of capital investments to other countries. And the slowdown of global investment flows will impact the development of each individual country. I am a small cog, but I am also important. Earlier, we mentioned the impact of the current situation on businesses in Canada and the USA, but only in general terms. And what about our ordinary person who runs their small and medium-sized business in these countries? Experts from different countries recommend implementing a special 10-point business survival strategy. 1. Diversification or expansion of market variety. Equal attention should be paid to both regional and export markets. 2. Cost optimization. It's worth automating production processes, optimizing staff, and cutting unnecessary expenses. 3. Localization of production. Finding local suppliers and minimizing dependence on imports will not only preserve, but also support all levels of business in the region. And creating reserves of critically important materials and resources will provide confidence for the future. 4. Digitalization. For a small family farm, it's challenging to maintain production and sales of their organic products under normal conditions. In the 21st century, in the era of technology, the majority of their customers are concentrated online. But our advice is not just for farms, it's for everyone. Implementing online services and stores and using cloud technologies will be a significant support. 5th, it's very important to remember pricing. Developing a more flexible pricing policy and implementing a dynamic pricing system will allow for maneuvering in constantly changing political and economic conditions. Resources can be allocated for creating loyalty programs. Everyone loves discounts and promotions, and developing alternative payment options will expand the field for financial maneuvers. 6th, the domestic market comes first. There are quite a few examples of how the method of developing a brand as a local one subsequently brought the product to a national and even global level. Emphasizing support for local producers added appeal for buyers. Participation in local fairs and acting as sponsors for events from other fields increased recognition and the chances of spreading the product beyond the region. 7th, risks. It's always important to remember the risks in business. Managing them with a team of competent managers in the company will become a strong cornerstone in the foundation of the business. Create a financial safety net and develop a crisis management plan for various potential shocks. Insurance for deals and export operations will also add peace of mind. Earlier, we mentioned that equal attention should be paid to both the domestic and international markets. Recommendations. We have recommendations for the first, and now let's focus on the international part. Of course, it's worth participating in various exhibitions where there is healthy competition in the form of products from other countries. It's also a good opportunity to find business partners. Licensing and implementing such licenses, as well as creating joint ventures, will give a significant boost to your enterprise. But to implement the previous point, a lot of attention should be paid to innovative development. Investments in research and development, as well as the creation of unique products, will contribute to your product diversity. And the implementation of innovative technologies, once again, equally. With the emphasis from point 6, it will make the product desirable in the shopping cart. 10. Every product is made not just for the sake of it, but for the end consumer. Communication with them is very important. Transparency in relationships with customers will increase trust in both the product and the brand as a whole. Demonstrating business sustainability, of course, within reasonable limits, will support demand. And the most difficult thing, especially in the current situation, is emphasizing independence from trade conflicts. The main thing is not to overdo it with self-confidence. Yes, the successful implementation of this strategy may require significant effort and resources. However, it will not only allow you to survive a difficult period, but also emerge from it stronger and more competitive. The trade war between the US and Canada continues to have a significant impact on both economies and the world as a whole. In view of this, these are merely events occurring between two individual countries, here and now. In fact, it is one of the small, but key details in the overall picture of the restructuring of the world order, which began a long time ago. A factor of success will be the ability of businesses in these countries to adapt to new conditions while maintaining flexibility. With the right strategic approach, the current crisis can become an opportunity for growth and strengthening market positions and relationships between the states and its smaller, yet nonetheless important partner, Canada. It's important to remember that their trade relations are too interconnected to completely sever any contact. Both countries must continue to seek a balance between protecting their economic interests and maintaining a beneficial trade partnership. The future of these economies depends on the ability of governments and businesses to find compromises and create new opportunities for growth even in uncertain conditions. In the long term, both countries are interested in maintaining mutually beneficial cooperation. History shows that trade disputes are always resolvable through diplomacy and mutual concessions, even though it has never been an easy task. And with that, our video comes to an end. We hope that the new information not only broadens your political and economic horizons, but also helps your business withstand challenging conditions. Don't forget to check the subscribe button on the channel, like, and share this video with friends. Until we meet again.